Hi, Todd Burns here with Homebrew Happy Hour. Enjoying a Kolsch tonight, my co-host Josh's favorite beer. So what I was going to do is go over the CMBecker beer regulator. Although I say beer regulator, it could be used for a lot of other things. Soda, coffee, we can do this in CO2, nitrogen, and other configurations. So it's a very, very versatile body to work with, and then we can configure it in a lot of different ways. We're also going to be doing a secondary version of this regulator, and that's what these holes are tapped for, and that will allow it to have a bracket so you can mount a bank of secondary regulators on a wall. So let me go over some of the features of this regulator. First and foremost, you probably noticed this metal. This is actually stainless steel. So it's a very, very strong regulator. It really should last a lifetime. Not only because of that, but also because of the fact that we can replace parts in this regulator, unlike a lot of regulators on the market. It's made to last and to be able to rebuild over the course of years. It actually has a 5-year warranty, which is pretty spectacular in the industry. So you don't have to worry about it for 5 years, and then after that, if you do need to rebuild it, it's pretty easy to rebuild. In fact, I'm going to break it down and show you exactly how it works here in a minute. So one of the things we decided, or some of the features that we decided to do on this, is we wanted it to be able to adjust with a screwdriver. There are some regulators on the market that you can adjust even with a thing you can pull out and move, but the problem we've had with some of those is that they tend to break and we have to replace those. So we wanted something that was kind of bulletproof. This is a very proven design. Another nice feature on this one is once you have it where you want it, so let's say we adjust it and we say, okay, there I am, and I'm at 10 PSI or whatever, you can actually lock this down. And when you lock this down, if somebody comes along and messes with your regulator, they're not going to be able to move it very easily. So just a way to lock it down and make sure that everything's good and secure. We also have a manual pressure relief valve on this regulator. I like a manual pressure relief valve because sometimes you want to relieve pressure from the system and you don't want to have to unhook a hose or pull a tab on a keg or something like that. So with this, you can just very easily remove the pressure. As soon as you push it down, you can put pressure back on it. Some of these things like the valve here can be, this one is an MFL, so you could put either a 5/16 quarter or even other size, depending on the hose you're using. But that's something that we can configure in different ways. So I think what I want to do next is actually break this down and really show you how this thing is built, and I'll explain why it's built the way that it is. First thing is the bonnet. This is just basically a cover. You'll see one hole in here, that's called a weep hole, and the reason for that is if you ever do have a situation where you're leaking, that allows the pressure to escape, and then you might have an issue. We certainly wouldn't expect one, but it's something that pretty much every regulator has. You've got your pressure cap, and then we actually spent a lot of time designing this. Probably went through, I would say, half a dozen designs before we settled on this one. And what we ended up with was a very wide one with a hole that fit this screw exactly, so that you got very consistent pressure from side to side and down. And that's something we've seen in other regulators where there's some issues with them holding pressure. Next, you have your main spring. This one is for 0 to 60, and it's basically made to push. When you push the screw down, because it's so thick, you're getting very little movement, and that's what you want, because you're pushing on this, and this is pushing on the part I'm going to show you below, the cartridge, and that's what changes your pressure. This retaining ring is something you don't see on all regulators. This goes all the way around here. Make sure you've got a perfect seat all the way around on your diaphragm, because this is actually called a diaphragm style regulator, which probably almost all beer regulators are. So this just slides out. It's got a groove in it. It slides right out of there. You see how you have a very big surface area again, and you've got that groove, and this fits right in it. That's all for precision. This is all these parts are made in Germany. So they're very precise parts, and that precision gives you the kind of accuracy, lack of creep, which is the regulator going up on and down on its own. All regulators are going to do that some, and you have to make some micro adjustments, but once you get this one set, it'll stay set where you want it. I'm going to take that cartridge out of there so you can kind of see how that works as well. So this cartridge, again, made in Germany, has a filter on it. This little ring here doesn't look like a big deal, but it's extremely temperature resistant. In other words, if you get a really, really cold temperature, it won't freeze up. And that's a failure that we also see in regulators, is that if that material's not exactly right, you'll end up freezing up the regulator and having some issues there. It's not usable. So you can kind of see how this moves up and down. I'm just using this plate to show you. That's where you get your difference in pressure right there. But except instead of doing it like that, it's extremely minute. And so this is basically a valve, okay? Once you get on the inside, you've got your low pressure side and your high pressure side. And you can see these holes here, and the holes are for different things. But you know, some of them are on the high pressure, some are on the, actually I should say, these are all on the low pressure. The holes for the high pressure are actually on the inside. I don't know if you can see them, but they're kind of on the side there. So everything for high pressure is below this. Everything for low pressure is above that. And that's how basically how the regulator works. So again, parts for this regulator are made in Germany, Portugal, the United States. We assemble all of these in the United States, and the original design of this regulator, it took us about 3 or 4 years working on it, and it was a team from Germany, Portugal, and the United States. Had all been in the beer business for a long time, and we wanted a regulator that was extremely reliable, but also affordable, so that anybody could afford one for their draft beer system, whether it be commercial or homebrew. So that's the CMBecker Regulator. And again, I am Todd Burns with Homebrew Happy Hour, and we appreciate you watching.